Whispers of a Hidden Love. Chapter 1. The First Glance. The morning hustle of New York was already in motion when Emily unlocked the doors of Lavender and Steam, the cozy cafe tucked between a bookstore and a flower shop in Soho. The scent of fresh croissants, cinnamon, and roasted beans filled the narrow space, wrapping around her like a familiar hug. Emily was 26, full of laughter and always humming some tune while prepping the espresso machine. With freckles that danced across her nose and curls she could never quite tame, she had a kind of brightness that made strangers smile without knowing why. She loved her job, not because she dreamed of serving coffee forever, but because of the people, the regulars, the stories behind each latte. She had a theory that everyone who entered a cafe brought a piece of their soul with them, and she was there to notice it. At exactly 8:07 that Tuesday morning, the door swung open, and he walked in. He had a worn leather bag slung over his shoulder, a dark blue scarf tucked around his neck despite the warmth, and eyes that looked like they held every unwritten sentence in the world. He was tall, quiet, and new. Emily straightened. "Good morning." First time, he glanced at the chalkboard menu, then at her. "Just coffee," he said. "Black. No sugar." "Ah, the classic tortured writer's special," she teased, pouring with a flourish. He cracked a small smile. "Is it that obvious?" She shrugged. "You've got the stare of a man lost in thought. And that notebook's seen better days." He chuckled. "Fair enough." She handed him the coffee. "Name?" "Nathan." "Emily," she replied, pointing to the name tag already pinned to her apron. "See you tomorrow, Nathan." "Maybe." He paid in cash and took the corner seat by the window. For the next hour, he scribbled in his notebook, occasionally pausing to sip the steaming brew. Emily stole glances between orders, oddly drawn to the quiet concentration on his face. She didn't know why he stayed in her thoughts all day, but he did. And when he returned the next morning, same time, same coffee, same seat, she felt something shift. For the next week, Nathan came in every morning at exactly 8:07. Always ordered the same black coffee. Always sat in the same corner. And always had his notebook open within seconds of sitting down. Emily began to look forward to those 8 a.m. minutes more than she liked to admit. He shook his head. "Boston, originally. But New York has its claws in me now." "And you're a writer?" "Trying to be," he said. "Working on something that doesn't want to be finished. I think that's every writer's curse." Nathan looked amused. "You speak like you know." Emily shrugged. "I journal. Bad poetry. Random thoughts. Nothing publishable." He picked up his damp notebook and held it like a secret. "Want to trade secrets sometime?" She smiled. "Maybe." Nathan began staying longer each day. Sometimes he ordered a second coffee. Sometimes he just watched the city from the window, pen idle in hand, as though the world outside was trying to speak through glass. Emily noticed the small things. He always tapped his thumb twice before writing something important. He hated the sound of styrofoam cups. He read poetry when he thought no one was looking. He never took calls. One Tuesday, after the morning rush, she brought him a croissant without asking. "On the house," she said. "You spoil me," Nathan said, breaking in half. "Sit with me." She hesitated. Technically, she wasn't on break, but the stool beside his table was empty, and so was her will to resist. She slid onto the seat. "So," she asked, "what are you writing in that mysterious book every day?" He looked at her for a moment. "Characters. Moments. Fragments that I hope become something. Any of them inspired by a barista with incredible multitasking skills." He raised an eyebrow. "You think I haven't already written you into 5 scenes?" Her heart skipped, then quickened. "Is that so?" He nodded. "You're too interesting not to." Emily glanced at his notebook. "Can I see?" Nathan paused. "I'll make you a deal. If I get to read one of your poems, you get to read one of my pages." She groaned dramatically. "Ugh, you drive a hard bargain. I'm a writer. Bargains and heartbreak are kind of my thing." They laughed together, and for a moment the cafe faded, the clatter of cups, the buzz of conversation, the cars outside, all dimmed. There was just him and her, tucked into a little world built from coffee steam and quiet affection. He handed her a folded napkin. "This was today's warm-up," he said. She read it silently. She smiles like sunlight filtered through trees, lingers like the scent of cinnamon and possibility. And though he doesn't know her story, he wants to write it word by word. Emily looked up, cheeks flushed. Is this about me? Nathan shrugged, but didn't deny it. Their eyes met again, and the silence between them grew louder. Not awkward, full of everything unsaid. She stood. I have to get back. He nodded, but she saw the flicker of disappointment. Just before she turned, she leaned down and whispered, "You can read one of mine tomorrow." And just like that, the game of maybe became something more. The next morning, Emily arrived earlier than usual. She wore a yellow cardigan she hadn't worn in months. Rider's sunshine armor, she called it. Her hands trembled slightly as she tucked a small folded notebook page into her apron pocket. Nathan came in at 8:07 on the dot. But this time, he didn't go straight to the counter. He walked up to her. "Good morning." She smiled, holding his cup already filled. "Black. No sugar." "I know." He took it but didn't leave. "So, do I get to read your soul today?" Emily rolled her eyes. "You're dramatic. I'm a novelist." With a small breath, she reached into her apron and handed him the folded poem. "Don't read it here." He accepted it like a rare treasure. "Got it." Somewhere with less caffeine and more courage. The day passed slowly. Emily kept glancing at the door, wondering if he'd come back. He didn't. By the time she finished her shift, the sky had turned lavender blue, and the city buzzed with neon. Her phone buzzed just as she stepped outside. "Nathan, I read your poem 3 times. Then another message. "Nathan, can I show you where I go when I'm stuck writing?" Emily stared at the screen. Her heart beat faster than she expected. "Emily, yes." 15 minutes later, they met at the corner of Prince and Green. He looked different in the streetlights, softer, but somehow more defined, as if the city revealed his edges. They walked in silence for a while, past bookstores, galleries, a violinist playing under scaffolding. Then Nathan stopped in front of an old building with ivy crawling up the side. He led her through a side alley to a fire escape, then up. At the top was a rooftop garden, overgrown, wild, but breathtaking. There were fairy lights strung around rusting pipes, a bench half covered in a faded blanket, and beyond that, the skyline. 100 windows glowing like stars. "This is where I come when I need to feel small," Nathan said. Emily turned slowly, taking it all in. "It's beautiful." He pulled a folded poem from his pocket. This line, "I dance like no one is watching, but secretly hope someone is," it felt like truth. She laughed softly. "It is." Nathan stepped closer. "I don't know what this is between us, Emily, but it's starting to matter." She looked up at him. "Then don't write it. Live it." They stood close enough to hear each other breathe. But neither moved. Not yet. Not tonight. But soon. The first chapter of their story had begun, and both of them knew they'd just crossed the threshold. Chapter 2, The Hidden Hours. After that night on the rooftop, something shifted between them. Nathan still came to Lavender and Steam every morning, still sat at his usual table. But now there were stolen glances that lasted longer, smiles that held more weight, and silences that spoke louder than words. Emily began bringing him different kinds of coffee, just to see his reaction. One day it was lavender mocha, the next a Cuban cortado. He never complained. He'd just grin and say, "Surprise me again tomorrow." They started walking together after her shifts. Not always to the rooftop, sometimes just around the block, sometimes to the park. Once, to a jazz bar tucked in a basement, where Nathan scribbled notes between songs. But they never told anyone. Not her co-workers. Not his editor. It wasn't out of shame. It was something more delicate. A beautiful, fragile thing they both wanted to protect from the loudness of the world. One evening, as they strolled through Central Park, Emily asked, "Why don't you write love stories?" Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Who said I don't?" "Well," she said, nudging him gently, "from what I've read over your shoulder, most of your stories are sad." He looked thoughtful. "Maybe because happy endings scare me." She stopped walking. "Why?" "Because real life rarely has them." Emily reached up and brushed a loose curl from her face. "Maybe you've just been writing the wrong stories." He looked at her, his eyes dark and unreadable. "Or maybe I was waiting to write this one." The words hung in the air. He stepped closer, but not too close. "Can I kiss you?" Her heart fluttered in her chest. She nodded. It was soft, tentative, like a sentence spoken in a foreign language, slow, careful, full of emotion. When they pulled apart, Emily whispered, "You're going to have to rewrite all your endings now." He smiled. "Only if you help me." They sat on a bench beneath a street lamp that flickered occasionally, sharing a quiet that felt like belonging. He held her hand. She leaned against his shoulder. It didn't matter that the world didn't know. In a cafe on a corner where rain always finds the windows, she moves like light, soft, constant, unaware of her glow. And he watches, afraid to touch the very thing that steadies him. Emily closed her eyes, pressing the paper to her chest. "Nathan, I don't know what this is between us, but it feels too good." He brushed a knuckle against her cheek. "Then maybe we stop worrying about what it is." They kissed again, this time slower, deeper. There was no rush, no need to define it. Just two people clinging gently to something neither of them had expected. But not everything was easy. The next week, a woman walked into the cafe while Emily was on shift. Tall, stylish, with sleek black hair and red lips. She greeted Nathan like she knew him, hugged him, sat at his table. Emily watched from behind the counter, heart suddenly sinking. They talked for a long time. Nathan didn't laugh the way he laughed with her. But still, he didn't look uncomfortable. When they left together, Emily felt a quiet sting she hadn't prepared for. That night, she didn't answer his texts. The next morning, Nathan came in as usual. She handed him his coffee without a word. He frowned. "You okay?" "Fine," she said too quickly. He paused. "You saw her." Emily gave a tight smile. "You don't owe me an explanation." "Yes, I do," he said. "Her name's Elise. She's my editor. And my ex." Emily froze. She wanted to meet in person about my manuscript. Nothing else. I didn't expect her to hug me. I didn't expect you to see. Emily exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. I didn't know how much it would hurt until it did. Nathan reached for her hand across the counter. "I'm not hiding you, Emily. I'm protecting what we're building. But I don't want to give you any reason to doubt me." She looked at him, into him, and nodded slowly. "Okay." Their fingers curled together like ivy around iron. They no longer called it meeting up. It had become a necessity, like breathing, like caffeine. One chilly evening, when the city began to drift off beneath a light drizzle, Nathan texted, "Nathan, the world is loud tonight. Can I borrow your quiet?" Emily smiled. She was just closing the cafe. The last table wiped, the final mug washed. "Emily, I'll trade it for one of your stories." 20 minutes later, he stood at her door with a bottle of grape soda, a box of raspberry croissants, and his worn notebook. They climbed up to the rooftop, wrapped themselves in a blanket, and sat beneath the pale moonlight. New York hummed below, honking taxis, distant shouting, midnight arguments drifting through alleyways. Here, silence. "Why me?" she asked softly. "You had a life before me. Relationships, success, connections." Nathan ran his fingers along the rim of his cup. "Because you don't want to be the heroine. But you are. Not for everyone. For me." Emily turned her head. "I'm not perfect, Nathan. Neither am I. Perfection is a counterfeit currency. But realness, this, right now, is real." He read her a passage from his manuscript. It was a scene where the main character, uncannily like Emily, runs away from home in the middle of the night because she finally chooses herself. She doesn't know where she's going, but for the first time, she's not afraid of the dark. Emily sat hugging her knees. "I ran away once too." "Where to?" "To this city. Away from other people's decisions. Other people's expectations. But sometimes it feels like I'm still running." He reached out his hand. She took it without hesitation. "Then stop here," he whispered. "I don't want you to run. I want to walk with you." Their fingers intertwined. There was no urgency in the touch, only trust. Safety. Acceptance. They stayed like that until dawn. First talking, then silent, then laughing at silly things. They shared the painful parts, his failure with his first novel, her fear of being left, his insomnia, her secret dances in the kitchen when no one was watching. In the morning, as the sky lightened, Emily said, "This wasn't just a night." Nathan looked at her. It was a prologue. After that night, something deepened. They didn't speak of love, not yet. But it was there, blooming silently between small gestures. Nathan would leave a daisy in her apron pocket. Emily would slip handwritten quotes between pages of his notebooks. They were falling, but gently, quietly like snowflakes in early spring. And yet, the outside world had begun to knock. It started with an email. Nathan's publisher wanted him in L.A. for meetings. A possible movie deal. Promotion. 3 weeks away. Maybe longer. I haven't even finished the draft, he said, frustrated, running a hand through his hair. They're rushing something that's not ready. Emily sat across from him at the rooftop, her legs tucked under her. Do you want to go? He hesitated. I want to be here. With you. But I've worked toward this for years. She gave a small smile. Then you should go. Don't let love become a cage. He looked at her, startled. Is that what this feels like? No, she said, reaching out to take his hand. But I know what it's like to clip your own wings for someone else. Don't do that. Not even for me. He kissed her fingertips. Promise me you'll still be dancing when I get back. She nodded. And you, keep writing. But don't forget who your muse is. They try to make the days last longer. More late-night walks. More stories. More laughter. More everything. Then came the morning of his departure. He stood outside her apartment with a single sunflower and a folded letter. I wrote this instead of packing, he admitted. She took the letter, but didn't read it yet. I hate goodbyes. This isn't one, he whispered, pulling her close. It's just an ellipsis. Their kiss that morning was different. Not passionate, not wild, but full of knowing, of memory, of hope. When the taxi pulled away, Emily stood on the sidewalk until it turned the corner and disappeared into the city. Only then did she open the letter. Inside was a single line. Even if I never make it back, know that this story was always ours. Chapter 3. The Return. The first few days without Nathan were strange. The cafe felt louder, colder. The chair by the window sat empty, like a paused sentence. Emily tried to keep busy. She worked double shifts, reorganized the pastry display, took long walks at dusk. But nothing filled the space he left behind. The city hadn't changed, but she had. At night, she reread his letter. The ink had started to smudge from her fingerprints. Even if I never make it back, know that this story was always ours. She hated that sentence, not because it wasn't beautiful, but because it sounded too final. 3 weeks passed, then 4. No messages, no calls, no updates. Was it the publisher's pressure? A delay? Or had something changed? Her co-workers started noticing her silence. Her manager offered a weekend off. Emily declined. She needed the rhythm, needed the movement. But one rainy Sunday morning, she woke to find something unexpected at her doorstep. A package, wrapped in brown paper. No return address. Inside, a book. Not just any book. The Hidden Hours, by Nathan Cole. Her breath caught. She turned to the dedication page. Her hands trembled. To the girl who brewed more than coffee. You gave me back my words when I thought they were lost. This is our story, stitched into fiction, but real where it matters. P.S. page 247 is for your kitchen. Emily flipped to the page. There, in the middle of a chapter about a dancer and a writer escaping the world, he'd written. And in the quiet of her kitchen, she spun in circles barefoot, thinking no one saw. But he did. He always did. She clutched the book to her chest. Still no note. No explanation. Just the story. A piece of him. That night, she danced in the kitchen again. Alone, but smiling. A week later, she heard a customer ask at the counter, "Is the lavender mocha still the most mysterious item on your menu?" The voice. She looked up, and there he was. Rain-drenched, unshaven, exhausted, glorious. "Nathan," she whispered. "I got stuck in L.A. contracts, interviews, pressure. They took my phone at the studio. I hated every second I wasn't here." He stepped closer, but I finished the story, and every line led back to you. She stood still. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Why didn't you call? I wanted the book to reach you first. I wanted you to read what I couldn't say yet." She laughed, breathless. "You're an idiot." "I know." He reached out. "But I'm your idiot, if you'll still have me." She ran into his arms. And this time, the kiss was everything, fierce, messy, perfect. Around them, the cafe swirled with light and noise. But in that embrace, everything stilled. The customers clapped. One barista cheered. Someone knocked over a sugar jar. But Emily and Nathan didn't notice. They had found their way back, not just to each other, but to the story they had begun. And this time, there would be no more ellipses. Just the start of forever. Nathan didn't leave again. Instead, he stayed. In her world, in her mornings, in the coffee-scented air of the cafe, in the long walks through Central Park. He wrote on napkins. She doodled hearts in the corners of his notebooks. Their lives braided together so naturally that neither remembered how it felt before. The book, The Hidden Hours, became a quiet success. Bookstores displayed it in their front windows. Readers tagged quotes on social media. Reviewers called it a love story born from stillness and spark. But the world didn't know the truth. That every word had a heartbeat. That Emily was the muse behind every sentence. Until one afternoon, Nathan was invited to speak at a literary festival in Brooklyn. Emily helped him pick out a blazer and tie, only to sneakily hide both before the event. "You're better in sweaters," she whispered, kissing his cheek. "You look like someone who writes about love, not someone who pretends to." He laughed. "You're coming, right?" She hesitated. "I'm not the spotlight type." "Then don't be in it. Just be near it." And so she stood in the back row, arms folded, heart pounding, watching the man she loved walk onto a stage and open a story to the world. He began reading from chapter 4, then paused, looked up at the crowd. "There's something I haven't shared," he said. This story wasn't just written. It was lived. He scanned the audience. His eyes found hers. She worked in a cafe. She danced when no one was watching. She believed in small joys and quiet love. And she changed everything. A hushed silence. Nathan's voice softened. "I never wanted fame. I just wanted one person to see me, really see me." And she did. So this book, it belongs to her. Emily felt the entire room turn. But she didn't hide. She stepped forward, smiling, crying, glowing. He met her halfway, right there between rows of chairs and pages of fiction. He didn't need to ask, but he did anyway. "Stay in the story with me?" She didn't answer. She kissed him instead. And the audience? They didn't clap. Not yet. Because when something is that honest, that raw, silence is the loudest kind of respect. Epilogue. A table for two. Months later, the cafe had a new item on the menu. The Hidden Hours. Dark roast, warm cinnamon, and a hint of something you can't quite name. Customers asked what it meant. Emily just smiled. Nathan wrote his next book at the table near the window. She brought him coffee, sometimes interrupting him just to steal a kiss. They still danced in the kitchen, still sat on rooftops, still whispered stories into each other's skin. And though the world now knew their love story, they kept one part secret. The first time she smiled at him through steam and espresso. Because some beginnings are too sacred for pages. They belong to memory, to hearts, to home. The end.